So Bitcoin has broken past its previous all-time high of nearly £15,000, and an analyst from Citibank recently predicted that Bitcoin price could reach $318,000 before the end of next year. So is it going to crash again? What's the difference between this boom and the 2017 boom? Well, in 2017 the price shot up and it shot back down again. But recently we've seen huge companies backing Bitcoin now. A few years ago people were buying Bitcoin purely for speculation. Yet now in 2020, PayPal have announced that they'll be allowing their users to buy, hold and sell Bitcoin directly through PayPal. And now we're seeing many billionaire investors who are openly disclosing that they hold some Bitcoin. So the perception of Bitcoin is completely turning around. I'm going to give you this quote by the Bitcoin creator Satoshi Nakamoto. He says it might make sense just to get some in case it catches on. If enough people think the same way, that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Now, when the companies that people trust, like PayPal, when they start backing Bitcoin, then alarm bells really do start ringing, because you might be thinking, well, should I be buying Bitcoin? Should I sell my Bitcoin if I already have some? Should I hold? How long will it boom for? Well, in order to make decisions like this, you need to know why is it that Bitcoin's been booming recently, what problems Bitcoin could solve, and what concerns there are with Bitcoin. And that is all exactly what's going on in this video, so do make sure to stick around till the end. And the thing is, some people are for Bitcoin, some people are against Bitcoin, and to be honest, it is easy to make an argument for and against, because let's be honest, they both have valid points. So in this video, I'm going to try my best to present a fair argument for and against Bitcoin, and that way you can decide for yourself. Hey, what's up people? Welcome back to our channel, Ralph Finance UK. Let's get straight into it. With Bitcoin, there's only ever going to be a limited supply. There's only ever going to be 21 million Bitcoins. You can't simply just print more. You can't make any more than this, that's it. And recently, Bitcoin has been surging in price like mad. And you've probably heard the news because, well, Bitcoin has been hitting mainstream media recently, with PayPal announcing they'll be allowing their customers to spend Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies in its network of 26 million merchants. And many other billionaires are now investing in Bitcoin. Now, some people do say that the reason Bitcoin is hitting mainstream media more now is because the people are losing faith in the authorities. And one example of this is the colossal money printing that happened especially in 2020, which is making people think, maybe we shouldn't be allowing the government to control our currency. Now, if we look over to the US dollar for a second rather than our British pound, and the reason we have to consider the US dollar is because it is the world reserve currency. 70% of all currency reserves throughout the world are in the dollar. So every other currency is tied to the US dollar. So whatever happens to the US dollar does end up affecting our British pound. So if we look over to the US dollar, they printed more than 3 trillion just in 2020, which means 20% of all existing US dollars have been created just this year. And the more money there is, the less valuable it becomes. I mean, it's just supply and demand. Now, before I go into more about the colossal money printing, let me just explain in very simple terms what Bitcoin really is. So first of all, Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency. Now, there's many other cryptocurrencies out there. Bitcoin isn't the only one, but it was the first. And it's a digital currency. All that means is you can access it via the internet. Now, this bit is important. What makes Bitcoin so different to the normal paper money that we know is that Bitcoin is decentralized. That means no one solely has control over it, not the government or the central banks or anyone else. By the way, the central banks are like the Bank of England in the UK, and the US equivalent is the Federal Reserve. And it's the central banks that pretty much control the economy. I mean, they're the people who set the interest rates, they choose how much money to print, they're the ones who give money out to the commercial banks like HSBC or Halifax, and it's the commercial banks who then deal with us, the consumers. We as consumers never directly deal with the central banks. So back to it, Bitcoin is decentralized, whereas our normal paper fiat currency is centralized, which means you put your trust into the central banks. This means they don't need or ask for your permission when they just go ahead and print more, which devalues your savings. So instead of being centralized like our paper money is, Bitcoin actually works on a peer-to-peer basis. All this means is I can send you Bitcoins and you can send them to me from anywhere in the world, anytime we want, without having any government or company be able to stop us. And that's because it is decentralized, it's not owned by anybody, and we as the public have access to a public ledger, where we can see exactly how this money is being sent. So how it works is a computer has to exchange some of its computational power, and in exchange it receives some bitcoins. And essentially these calculations are used to validate Bitcoin transactions. So you can think of it as Bitcoin essentially has to be mined. That is the term that people use. Now there is a limited supply of Bitcoin. There is a total of 21 million Bitcoins that's ever going to be put into existence. You can't just print more. Now, around every 4 years, the reward for validating these Bitcoin transactions is reduced by half. And the point of this is to essentially regulate the new Bitcoins that come onto the market. Currently, there's around 18 million Bitcoins that have already been mined, which means there's around 3 million unmined Bitcoins. And also, Bitcoin is highly divisible. A single coin is divisible by 8 decimal places. So you could actually have 0.0000001 Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin actually uses blockchain technology, and blockchain has a lot of potential for our futures. But this video is not about blockchain, it is about Bitcoin, so don't get the two mixed up. Blockchain is a concept, it's a technology, it's an idea, and Bitcoin is just one application of blockchain. Now, Bitcoin has more than doubled this year alone, and over the last few weeks it really has been booming, and so naturally people are getting very excited now. Some people are more concerned on how they can get a piece of the action, whereas others are thinking, why is this even happening again just 3 years after the last boom and crash? Now, the first thing I'll say is this boom is different to the 2017 boom. And this is because people are much more educated about cryptocurrency and Bitcoin now than they were back in 2017. You see, back then, no one really knew what Bitcoin was and what it could be used for, but people were seeing the huge price increases, so people were just buying it purely for speculation. Some people did make millions of dollars on this, and others did lose a lot of money. A lot of people didn't understand Bitcoin, yet you'll find it was the same people who were actually going into debt to buy some because they'd heard if you just buy one Bitcoin, it is a sure way to get rich. So it became a sort of hype, and hype usually signals bubbles because people start trading using the two emotions we always talk about, fear and greed. They panic buy because they don't want to miss out, and then they panic sell at the first sight of a drop. And all this does is create huge rallies and then huge crashes, which is exactly what happened in 2017. Back in April 2017, Bitcoin was trading at around £950 per coin. By December of the same year, this had gone up to a colossal £15,000 per coin before crashing straight down to the £6,000 to £7,000 mark by early 2018. And the reason I say 6 to 7 is because it was just so volatile. And by early 2019, it still hadn't stopped crashing. And at this point, it was around £3,000 per coin. So I hope from there you can see that Bitcoin is very, very volatile. And that's because there's so much emotional trading going on. But over the last couple of years, it has slowly started climbing back up, and now we find ourselves right back up there and even beyond. But what makes it different now is perception. Bitcoin isn't just seen as a speculative bet anymore. Now we're actually seeing institutional investors investing into Bitcoin rather than retail investors who are just looking to make a quick profit. As I said before, PayPal now allows its customers to spend crypto in its network of 26 million merchants. And it's not just them. The commission-free trading app, Robinhood and Webull, they are both now offering cryptocurrency trading on their platforms. We're also seeing huge tech companies exposing themselves to Bitcoin. Earlier this year, the payment processing company Square, they purchased $50 million worth of Bitcoin, and MicroStrategy currently holds more than 40,000 Bitcoins, worth over $780 million. And Fidelity, one of the biggest brokerages out there, they've announced they are creating a Bitcoin ETF. And it's not just huge companies either. Like I said before, we have individual billionaires like hedge fund manager Bill Miller. He recently said, I think every major bank, every major investment bank, every major high net worth firm is going to eventually have some exposure to Bitcoin or what's like it. A billionaire American investor, Paul Tudor Jones, says he believes investing in Bitcoin right now is actually comparable to investing in tech companies like Apple or Google before they essentially became household names. And he has around 1 to 2% of his total portfolio in Bitcoin. And we have billionaire American investor Stanley Druckenmiller, who says he expects Bitcoin to be a good hedge against inflation, which he expects in the next few years as more and more money is printed. Now, Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Morgan Chase, he has said in the past that the people who buy Bitcoin are stupid, and then not too long after that, he took his statement back, and then the bank themselves started investing into cryptocurrency. So not only are more and more people talking about it, we're now seeing big companies and billionaires now investing into Bitcoin. And investing into Bitcoin has become a lot more accessible now. Just a few years ago, you had to buy Bitcoin through a separate cryptocurrency exchange. So you had to open up a new account, give your ID, give passport photos. There were quite a few obstacles before you had access to Bitcoin, enough to put most people off, whereas now it has actually become much easier. Now we can see that people over in the US are more interested in Bitcoin than here in the UK. I mean, it is really taking off there, and we can see this when we look at the retirement accounts for people over in the US. So here we can see that even within the US, the older generations prefer gold, while the younger generations prefer Bitcoin. And we see that the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust is the 5th largest holding for millennials, and it's not even on the list for the boomers. So the baby boomers prefer gold, whereas millennials prefer Bitcoin. So why is Bitcoin taking off now? Well, there are a few reasons, but let me start with the main one. If you sell me something that's worth £10, I can pay you with a £10 note. Why does this work? Well, it's because we both have confidence in the pound. I have confidence that I can pay you in pounds, and you have confidence that you can use that £10 note to then buy something else. I mean, it all relies on confidence. If I just gave you a piece of paper with 10 written on it by me, then you probably wouldn't accept it. So we can agree that for something to have value, there needs to be a limited supply of it. And that is where we have a big problem, because the US dollar is a fiat currency. It's a currency that's not backed by anything. And again, I'm referring to the US dollar because it is the world reserve currency. All of the currencies, including our British pound, are linked to the US dollar. So the fact that the US dollar is a fiat currency, meaning it's not backed by anything, well, that means it may as well be a piece of paper with 10 written on it by me, because there is nothing stopping the central banks just printing an infinite supply. And the facts speak for themselves. The Federal Reserve have already printed trillions and trillions of dollars in response to the pandemic. By the way, the Federal Reserve is the central bank over for the US. And actually more than $3 trillion US dollars have been created in 2020 alone. That means almost 20% of all US dollars in existence today have been created just this year. And the consequences of all this? Well, the dollar has lost a colossal 95% of its value since 1940. Now, I just want to say, if you are finding value out of this video, then please do hit that thumbs up button. It really does help get our content in front of more people just like yourself. So now people are naturally losing confidence in the US dollar, because as the central banks print more and more, as greed takes over, the value of your savings becomes less and less, and the value of each dollar just doesn't have the same buying power anymore. And this is what inflation is. I mean, many people don't question that the fiat currency we use today, there is an infinite supply of. So how can something which there is an infinite supply of ever be of value? And so people are turning to other storeholds of wealth as a way to hedge against this inflation of the US dollar losing value, and so they can protect their wealth. And this is why we've seen gold and Bitcoin prices surge recently. Just like gold, there is a limited supply of Bitcoin. Like I said, there's only ever going to be 21 million Bitcoins in circulation. No central bank can ever make this claim with their fiat currency. And this is one of the main reasons people are now turning to Bitcoin. They now have confidence in Bitcoin as a currency rather than just a trading tool. I mean, we can see that Bitcoin started to boom roughly when this pandemic first hit, and that's when the colossal money printing started. So people are buying Bitcoin as they believe it's a way to protect their wealth. But there is an issue when people think they can just buy Bitcoin and get rich quick overnight. Yes, many people are still using Bitcoin as a get-rich-quick opportunity. And if people are using it like this, then confidence in Bitcoin as a currency will drop. In 2017, this is exactly what happened. People who didn't even understand Bitcoin were just using it as a trading tool, and this is what caused that huge rally and then a huge crash. Currencies aren't meant to be used to get rich. They're meant to be used for you to buy and sell goods. So if the majority of investors are viewing Bitcoin as an alternative to fiat currency, then we may continue to see it boom without a huge crash. Overall, what I will say is this: if you're not ready for how volatile Bitcoin is, then it's not for you, because the biggest risk with Bitcoin for now is that volatility. So look at it as a long-term investment, because we know time and time again the people who try to time the market and make a quick profit, they're the people who end up buying at the top and selling at the bottom as they let fear and greed make their decisions for them. So now you're asking, can I get rich by trading Bitcoin? Well, yes you can. Many people have and many people will. But like I said, it comes at that huge risk of the volatility. Our advice would be that in the same way many investors are only allocating 1 to 2% of their total portfolio into Bitcoin, you should also not be allocating any more than this. Bitcoin is really an alternative to holding fiat currencies, just like gold is. And so as central banks print an unlimited supply of fiat currency, all this does is push more and more people to invest in Bitcoin, as people are now losing confidence in the US dollar as the world reserve currency. Now some people, especially the older generation, they do argue, why not gold? Well, gold has its own limitations, such as you have to carry it and it's not fractional, and this is the reason we moved over to the gold paper certificates in the 1900s. And so some people then say, well, why not digital gold then? Well, we can do, but then what's wrong with Bitcoin? It's also digital and it's limited. Now, many people believe blockchain actually has a lot of value in the future, but it all depends on whether we adopt that technology. I mean, Tesla could have the best battery technology in the world, but if people don't adopt it, then it makes no difference how good their cars are. They just wouldn't take off. And it's the same with Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies and blockchain as a whole. So if you found value out of this video, which I really hope you did, then please do smash that thumbs up button, and that way you'll get more of our videos recommended to you, and also subscribe so you don't miss our next financial education video. Hope to see you on the next one. Take care.